North Alabama School for Organizers presents Fireside Chats, intersectional education through interviews with the organizations and people making real change right now. Listen, learn, and organize with Nassau and Fireside Chats.
LA. When my daughter came along, I really needed a better place to get her food other than the stores and restaurants. Like you kind of alluded to Kroger and many of the others that have this grocery store hierarchy. They literally dictate where the good food in town goes and where the less good food goes. So it may be by zip code or specific store numbers, but there are literally humans behind those decisions being made. And so I just didn't want to leave all that up to chance and started growing my own food. It became, abundant and to the point where I had far more than I needed as a family. But also I began giving it away to friends and other gardeners, and found a community of people who really liked to exchange things. And we kind of informally started a monthly get together called Crop Swaps.
Welcome everybody to this Nassau Fireside Chat. I don't know if Hi is going to join us or not. He might be busy, but today we're going to be joined by a good friend of mine from high school. I mean, we went to high school together way back in the day. Jamiah Hargins, and I'm going to be co-hosted today with Ben from Spice Radio. So super excited to have everybody on. So Jamiah, to fill you a little bit in on what we do, Nassau is the North Alabama School of Organizing. And so what we're trying to do is put together a kind of curriculum for people who want to get involved in their communities and learn how to organize in an effective manner and give them all the various tools to do that. So we do a lot of our stuff through a historical lens. One of our co-founders, his name's Hy Thurman. He was one of the original co-founders of the Young Patriots organization back in Chicago in the late 60s, early 70s with the Black Panther Party. And so we're just trying to get people more kind of up to speed on that coalition building organizing methodology, right? Across, racial and class lines, as well as all the gender, sexual orientation, the whole gamut, right? We want to make sure that everybody, where that true intersectionality organizing is being done. And then, so for those of y'all tuning in, my good buddy Jamiah here, he is the kind of brain genius that has come up with the LA Crop Swap, which is an outstanding organization that's grown so much over the last 2 years that I've been following your journey there out in LA. It's hard to even describe what all you're doing now. You're just doing everything, right? They're putting Kroger out of business or something. I don't know, man. You guys are just crushing it out there. So, Jamiah, let's have you kind of take a minute and talk to us a little bit from take us from the start, like beginning to where you are now on what crafted up Crop Swap, how you came up with the idea and what you're working on.
Sure, thanks, man. And yeah, it's great to be here as a friend of Donald. We did go to high school together, and we were in the smart classes together and everything, sharing notes and making it work. Thank you so much. It's an honor. It feels full circle, and absolutely, it's great to share this story, because I think for those who are involved in your group here, they're leaders, they're community leaders, either historically or they plan to be soon. And this has been a very interesting community leadership opportunity, one that almost needs to be driven from the ground up and couldn't be corrupted because of that. So I've had a couple of, I guess, what is Crop Swap LA? Crop Swap LA since 2018. We now have a mission of farming unused spaces such as front yards, rooftops, walls, patios, parking lots and things like that. So we've got, enough contacts and context now to grow food in any location. In most cases, we can recycle the water as well, which is a really great asset for the Los Angeles context. So we just now are soon to complete our first front yard micro farm. It's kind of a concept that we have that has everything included in it. Excuse me. So, nursery, composting, but the cool feature is that it has a water recycling feature. We basically dug out 2 giant reservoirs and connected pumps onto pond liner on the yard. So now all the crops are grown in soil socks. And when irrigation comes, it automatically drains back downward. So we'll be unveiling that soon on April 3rd at a big event with hopefully the mayor and all the city council people, so they can see how important it is to fund what we're doing. So how much time do I have? I have a little bit of a visual presentation, if that's cool.
You got as much time as you would like, my friend.
Right on there. Smooth, right on, bro. And I spoke at our graduations. I don't know if you remember that, but I I didn't know it'd be training for all of this. Honestly, there's so much more to do, and I'm just really privileged to have been in these positions. But I want to show you guys a little bit about my background, and I know we are digging deep about our own growth. And if I can get this to load, let's see if I can try a second time. Escape, refresh maybe. Okay, I think you can see my baby photo. So I was born in 1984 to a family that had its own migration history. We'd started out in Louisiana and Arkansas, and then my father here on the left with the white shirt, they all moved when he was 8 years old to Fresno, California. Many children with a sharecropping experience, and actually my grandpa here, he used to own land in Arkansas. They did yield my father, who did an exceptional job in the U.S. Air Force. I went on to learn that he was responsible for some pretty dope civil engineering, like underground living situations with air conditioning, refrigeration that NORAD used, and some other top secret things. So it was super cool to have him as a guide through my adolescence. I unfortunately did lose him around this age. I was 13, and he passed from cancer, and it began my own kind of leadership journey. I was with my mom, and just the two of us at that point in the house. My brother had gone to college, so I just needed to learn and guide from others around me. At the time, it was my church family, my brotherhood there, and others that were just friends and good teachers of mine. I got hit by a car, and then I made it in the newspaper, ironically delivering newspapers. And ironically delivered this newspaper about my story. But just a little bit of a hiccup. But then did some science in high school related to NASA, and really had fun through college, learning racquetball, and then meeting my now wife Jamiah in Spain. So lovely little journey, and she and I are here in Los Angeles together with Triana. So I then went on to study in grad school. Oh no, actually, I was a trader in Chicago, trading stocks, options, bonds, futures, mutual funds, and a lot of securities, and just basically learning that world. I understood it, but I didn't really quite like it. What was interesting to me was futures and how it tied to agriculture. And so I'll get to some of that later when I get back to my current work. Because at the time we decided to go to Brazil and kind of drop what we'd had in Chicago and figure out what it's like to live in Brazil in 2010, which then led me to my leadership opportunity at the time of managing a language school that was funding an orphanage. So it was a great opportunity to work with both paid and volunteered staff, as well as on a tight budget in multiple languages in for a cause in an amazing city like Rio. So it was really just me to take it in and take from the experience I could as a leader. I went to Columbia to do my policy degree in about 2011. And this is me just sitting behind a desk and acting like I'm talking. I'm not actually not actually being interviewed by anyone in that image. But I became a specialist in Brazil and understanding how U.S.-Brazilian relationships worked, as well as some of the economics around our relationship between two countries. Then I started my first startup. I don't know if Donald knows about this one, but it's called Wing. And it was an app that would connect a single person with a wing woman at a bar or a restaurant or a concert venue so they could help them open conversations. So, got a little social experimentation going on there, but it didn't go very far. And then my next startup idea was Office Sitters. Office Sitters was two-level co-working space with a childcare center on the bottom and a co-working space for parents on top. So we want that to still happen one day once some funding comes through the door, but it didn't get anywhere at the time. I also have a patent for a product that is called toiletries. Toiletries sits on your toilet and uses that clean water in the tank to grow fresh aerating and floral plants on the sides. We have a patent and trademark, and soon I'll get funding to actually follow through on this. So that's the product and the patent. Great. So this catches us up to Crop Swap LA. When my daughter came along, I really needed a better place to get her food other than the stores and restaurants. Like you kind of alluded to Kroger and many of the others that have this grocery store hierarchy. They literally dictate where the good food in town goes and where the less good food goes. So it may be by zip code or specific store numbers, but there are literally humans behind those decisions being made. And so I just didn't want to leave all that up to chance and started growing my own food. It became, abundant and to the point where I had far more than I needed as a family, but also I began giving it away to friends and other gardeners, and found a community of people who really liked to exchange things, and we kind of informally started a monthly get-together called Crop Swaps. Excuse me. This was about 2018, and we decided to go ahead and continue it monthly, getting neighbors together to share their extras, recipes, family histories. It became a real space of love and acceptance. It became like a garden church on that first Sunday of every month. People could express their own cultures and express their histories through their foods, and it just became a really loving community of hundreds of us. So I began to think how we could replicate this image here. This is a town in Switzerland that if you look closely, there's a Swiss flag, but basically they have small, narrow streets to get in and out of the streets, but most of the land is committed to agriculture. And I just began thinking, if Los Angeles has all of these great assets, similar to Florida and some of the Southeast, like where you are, all the timing assets and things we can grow multiple seasons, then why not take advantage of that in every space possible, namely our front yards. So I've given a couple seminars just about the idea and done a couple of small gardens like this one here. Met a couple of famous gardeners. This gentleman is the gangster gardener. You might have heard of him, Ron Finley. I was in this image much more excited to meet him than he was to meet me. And that's cool. And then the city of LA gave me an award for being somebody that's uniting people around food. And I was really honored to receive that 2019. There was an article published about me in Real Simple magazine. I thought that was cool to be right next to the O magazine. I think it was more cool to be positioned next to the O magazine than to be in the Real Simple magazine. But it was really exciting. And then Time magazine did something too, which was really lovely. But most important is the humans involved. Like this in the middle is a politician named Sydney Kamlager, who just got state senate in California. She's put it on her agenda to have an urban agriculture initiative that's really progressive and about land reclamation. It's about indigenous foods and varieties, and really just great to have that kind of support. The supports also come from the community side, where volunteers have offered time. This is in front of my place shoveling manure, I'm pretty sure. I think I had them doing manure that day. And then others making beds in my backyard, as we didn't really know what we were doing at that time. But it's been an informal incubator of talent and training. This is a young gentleman named Yasser on the right, who's currently a formal trainee of ours, learning everything it takes to install front yard gardens, install wall gardens, and run the customer service side of our work. So it's really exciting to have that kind of engagement. we're also at the farmers market. I opened a farmers market that lasted through. It made it through COVID, at least COVID worst. It's still open. It made it to stay open the whole time. And it's got great managers that are now, running that farmers market, called the West Adams Farmers Market. So one day we'll be selling our own food there, but for now we have farmers and other vendors that come through. So it's really cool. We've had music and dogs and demonstrations, food trucks, and of course our own table with the Crop Swap LA turtle. Let's see. Briefly did microgreens and fruit picking in people's backyards. Let's see. Just 1 second more. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So water is very important in LA. I put a water tank on the side of my rental house here that I'm renting, and it collects 530 gallons of water that I can reuse and pump onto the gardens. And so since learning that kind of process, I've now made it a commitment to make that part of our installations everywhere. And this is a little example in my front yard. It's a table and a tray with a fish pump, a fish tank, and actual goldfish pumping up onto there that grew tomatoes and stuff like that. So there are many ways to do it. Oh yeah. We're going to come out with a children's book series, Donald. It's going to be called Captain Planted.
Nice.
Yeah. I didn't mean to leave that in here, but it's okay. You got a sneak peek. Oh yeah. Oh shoot. Okay,
you
it's
go.
getting embarrassing. There's a cape. There's a cape as well.
Is this going to be like the what was his name? Those Captain Planet YouTube videos with Don Cheadle? Is this?
Yeah, exactly. I saw those. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I literally, I'm a little blushing, but that's funny. So yeah, a grocery store called the Co-op did something to support us financially, their registers, and it's just been great having a lot of community support. So I'm going to switch over to the second brief. Let's see, there it is. All right, so I want to show you the front yard micro farm that we now have happening. That the opening is going to start soon. So sorry for all of this. Oh yeah. Okay, so this is the before image of what the house looked like before. These are 2 front yard segments, and up front here are some rose bushes. On the side there is some green area, and it has parkway like that all the way around, even to the left side. And now it's something like this. This is us planting. It's got a view of downtown's like skyline and the mountains. I think you can see the Hollywood sign too, which is really just cool. But what we've chosen to do is basically remove the grass and then lay pond line, terraform the earth such that there are kind of like incarved rows, concave rows, and then line it with both garden fabric and a pond liner. And then what we did is we stuffed these socks, these garden socks. They're made out of polypropylene, but it's recycled. It's recycled polypropylene from some other use, and it's food grade. But we stuff them with a mix of compost and soils, such that when we lift them up and cut little holes in them to plug the plants in, it's a good space for them. And this should last 3 years before needing to be replaced. So we'll kind of be able to just pop in new ones on one day without missing one growing day, so to speak. And I know in farmer world, you miss one growing day and then everything's off. You're just like, wow, all the calculations. Yeah. So, and a lot of that we're learning. What you see here are some trainees who've committed their time. See if I can get a good full image. This is a side view, again, as it irrigates, that water is collected and drains back down on the pond liner. And where it drains is, sorry, I apologize that you are my test audience and I'm not doing this super smoothly.
You're doing great.
Thanks a lot.
But now we know you got to get some photos there of the end result, right? Where the drain.
Yeah, totally. I highlight this. So this is the water meter that we're saving these people so much water by doing this. They used to spend 800 gallons of water just to water the grass in like one go because of how many sprinklers there are and how many gallons come out at once. That was 800 gallons every day. Now we have deep reservoirs that, hold the water where it drains back into. It adds up to about 660 gallons that we reuse over and over again to grow food. So this originally started off as 50 here. It's really like 50, and now it says 70. So I think we've used 200 gallons of water over the course of a week, and they've just seen their water bill go way down, just straight to the ground. In order to protect the crops from animals like raccoons, here's some images of us laying the pond liner after we've carved into ground. But we are using dried wolf urine as a deterrent for for these animals in the city. So like the wolf urine deters, all kinds of animals, raccoons and opossums and things like that. So I'm looking for soon I'll find it, the deep caverns that we dug by hand. We did all of this terraforming by hand. Okay, so here's a kind of image where this gentleman is looking down into. Here is a big hole that we dug and put pond liner. So that's when it irrigates up here, it drains right back down into that, both on that side and on this side. There's a second one here, and together they add up to about 660 gallons. What we'll have here along the wall is a nursery. We're installing that tomorrow. I should just call it a greenhouse, but it'll have some dig sprayers, and we're basically planning to grow microgreens and sell that as part of the package. And then over here we'll do some composting. But we've also lined these pathways you can't see in this image with native plants as a way to draw more pollinators without using that soil for eating. Because when we did the soil tests, turns out there's a lot of lead in the parkway space by the street, the cars and all, and there's some lead up here on this level. But we decided, we'll just go ahead and do a regenerative strategy on these parkways down here and plant a whole lot of sunflowers. Apparently, when it comes to lead cleansing of soil, sunflowers and a specific variety of them do a very great job. So I'm lucky I got a soil scientist on my team advising me on what to do with that. And the plan is to sell, from this micro farm, to sell micro boxes is what we'll call, from the crops that we're growing, things that are, a few varieties of these, together. Some of them are harvested fully at once and others are harvested, gradually. I think we'll have to test the market and just see what it can bear, but it's a new model, and I think it helps us sidestep some of the traditional permitting problems of going through grocery stores and getting approvals for restaurants to purchase. It allows us to just get straight to the customers down the street, 2-mile radius or less. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'd love to, open it up for questions and find a better way to share a more logical stream of photos.
Well, let me just say I'm very very impressed by all the stuff you're doing, specifically because you're like hitting all the major things like childcare and food security and keeping the food healthy. It's like just kudos to you for tackling like the ground level problems people have, because there's a lot of people going after these like lofty goals like education and stuff, but it all starts with those couple things, it seems like.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, I have to give a lot of thanks to the whole becoming a parent in both of those experiences. You know, the childcare thing, I was kind of desperate, like, oh my goodness, how do I work and have childcare? Like, it's kind of a solving problem, but it's because, you know, that process hasn't been fixed in our society yet. It hasn't been ironed out. And then the food issue too, I ate junk and didn't really think about it. But then when it came to thinking about giving that to my daughter at any point, it's just like a totally different conversation. So, yeah, again, that cycle of life, and being connected through that cycle has allowed me some insight in those opportunities.
Yeah. So it looks like Joy's got a couple of questions here. One of them is that microgreens tend to have a lot of plastic involved in the packaging. Do you have a solution for that? And then earlier you'd mentioned your rainwater collection system. Do you want to take like 60 seconds or something and kind of talk a little bit about the process by which you collect rainwater?
Yeah, totally. So we just started brainstorming packaging this week. I think we have a supplier that is a cardboard wax. It's like a wax lined cardboard reusable situation where they'll get a membership reward by giving us the box back to use again. That way it kind of incentivizes reuse. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of plastic too, even in our design. But we made sure to source them from places that were recycled. Like I mentioned, the polypropylene, and then the eco rain boxes that make up the structure underneath the reservoirs. Those are made of recycled baby bottles. So they're kind of quirky recycled also. But all of this is, less plastic than one family uses in a year by far, and it's going to be used to conserve hundreds of gallons of water every week. So yeah, it's we gotta be smart about packaging too when that comes. And then in terms of harvesting rainwater, essentially all you need to do is make sure that the gutters are nicely working on the property, that strategically where you're going to be drawing it down to. The gutter work is really delicate though. Like I don't know if anyone's done it themselves, but man, it can be frustrating if you don't get it exactly level, or if you have to have a slight draw down on the direction that it'll go so that it flows. And I just suggest hiring somebody to do it right. But once your gutters are working, then it is in Alabama, it might be illegal to harvest rainwater. Yeah, it's definitely legal to do it here in California, and that's an interesting policy. I haven't reconsidered that in a few years. I've heard that being the case. It should be something advocated against, because it provides relief on the system. Like even this morning, our water went out for no reason. Like we went to flush the toilet and nothing happened, and that can be scary. But basically, what we did to solve the problem is I went out to my back and I got rainwater, and we could flush the toilet by pouring it into, and other things we needed. So the water came back on in the afternoon, but that shows an exact example of how not relying on the system 100% is wise. But yeah, if there are legal loopholes, you might also find rebates. In Los Angeles, I had $400 back on that giant green thing I showed you that had the water in there, and all I had to do was send that in for a rebate. So once you get the water through the gutters to the right direction, I suggest going big with your rainwater capture sizes. Always go big. Always make sure it's covered, of course, with a screen or something to keep mosquitoes out. And when I say big, by the way, I did 530 with that 530 gallons. You should have two of those. If you can do one of those, you can do two of those. They're not that big. And that's really what you end up needing. And of course, in the context of Alabama, I don't know if it's as, you get rain much more, I think, than LA, but they're like, yeah, definitely. So it may not be as necessary, but either way, rainwater is useful to, wash your hair, useful when it's fresh to drink, to brew teas in. It opens up flowers and it smells a little bit more. And there are other minerals in rainwater that are known to be healthy too. So I think look into your area, make sure there's not like acid rain, or like the first rain is bad or something like that. But generally, I think it's a great asset to have on hand.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions technical about the farm and stuff. So the cisterns, how deep are those pits you dig for them?
Yeah, it was about 6 feet deep. Yeah. Yeah, because on one end, the narrow end, it's about 4 feet deep, but by over here, because it's an incline, it's about 6 feet.
And you put like barrels or something in there to actually contain?
We put eco rain boxes, and I'll do my best to find an image because it is a fascinating aspect. Essentially, it looks like milk crates, and the milk crates get stacked on top of each other inside there with pond liner. So, perfect! I found it. I can share this one and logically. There we go. So these guys on the right are just about to lay the pond liner into the giant hole that we dug, and here they are putting the eco rain boxes in that space in a specific arrangement that'll make space for the pump and an overflow valve. Basically, it's designed so if it rains, then it'll trigger off. Well, if it rains and hits a certain volume in there, it'll no longer fill itself, which is why we've only used 200 gallons. Yeah. So that's that. But yeah, those holes are, man, that was like a test of courage for these trainees. Those who made it through that, man, they're in, man. They're in.
And the soil bags seem really interesting. When I saw those, I was like, that's kind of cool, because I guess you might be able to make those off site and like bring them in, or have people donate the materials, or like, can you talk about those a little bit?
That's exactly what we did. In fact, from my front yard driveway, I had everyone help me stuff them right here, and we kept it tarped. Basically, we had to do that within 1 week. Time everything just right from arriving of the compost and the soil, so that we get the right percentage mix. We've got all the other equipment, and then get it all stuffed so it doesn't dry out. Like once it's soil, it's like live life. Like a clock has begun ticking. So yeah, we stuffed 273 soil socks for that garden that you saw, and it actually needed exactly 273. We were all like, bro, that's universal magic.
That's next level. I don't know if I've ever even heard someone do a project like that.
Yeah. That was epic right there. That was like 273 is a special number for us all now.
Joy had a question about sourcing compost and soil. How do y'all source?
Yeah, so soon I'll have an alignment with Kellogg Soils. I think right now I had to buy it from a place in California called OF Wolfenbarger. It's just a giant soil and materials depot. Any kind of vegetable mix that they have is designed, 70%. It's either 70% soil and then like 30% compost as a mix. Something like that is what I go for. Heavier on the compost side. There is a risk, when you have flowers, that if you're planting flowers, a heavier compost amount, I think, is not so good. But double check. But what we did here was, we had the soil and the compost and mixed 15% of it to be compost and dumped the rest to be soil and mixed it in a separate bin. And then once it's mixed, we can stuff it by hand into those socks. So it took us, I believe, 5 days, 5 active days of people helping out from about 7 o'clock until about 11 o'clock to stuff that 273 socks. And we were able to put 600 plants in those. So 600 plants that are lettuces, herbs, tomatoes even. And some of those are going to be harvested in about 3 weeks. So yeah, it's an exciting time in our experience.
Donald, you got any?
Yeah. So you'd mentioned a couple of people, like you get some of the YouTube gardeners that are out in that area. Are you familiar at all with Satin Hill Farm. Have you seen that YouTube
No.
channel? So he's out in North Carolina, and one of the
Mhm.
things they did is they have an organization out there called Raleigh City Farms, which is in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they basically have a 1 acre lot that a bunch of people got together, and every year a different farmer comes in and volunteers and just takes over that lot and then just like grows stuff, and it's all charitable based. I think it all goes to a
Wow.
food bank. Like as far as like your kind of the front yard gardens, is there? So you had mentioned kind of the boxes and selling that out. Is there kind of an end goal of just kind of having some sort of like communal food where it's like at some point you just like turn over the reins and you're just like, all right, everybody, I guess you all just got free dinner now. Like good times. Like
Yeah.
what is it like? What is the kind of end goal for you?
Yeah. So there is a component with that. So 10% of the food will be given away at every harvest, and then the other 90% sold in hyperlocal ways. But the goal there is to show that a business can be a social enterprise in its money too. Like I want to prove that nature is so abundant that I can afford to give away 10% of the harvest every time and still make enough money to keep everyone happy. That I think is the real goal. And that can be through, this one micro farm or 400 micro farms in LA at some day, to show that, we are beneficent, naturally as humans. And it's just, we've been tapping into something internal instead of tapping into nature and what's already provided, and not needing to be stingy anymore. So yeah, I'm hoping to, lead that movement that way. And then, we'll be selling compost there, selling worms, private tours, things like that, keeping it open. And just, using the opportunity to show what's possible. Like I've seen some other large yards, man. I want to get my hands on, just dig big holes and throw some liner and just grow everything we want. Yeah, for real, and just have like an annual process of replacing, or annual or triannual, somewhere between there, of replacing the socks. And, it'd be, super great. Yeah, Joy would love to see that farm in her yard. Yeah. So there's so many opportunities, even those big hills on the sides of on the highways, man, those can all be farmed too. Just like no one's taking the initiative. So, yeah.
So, go ahead, Ben. You had a question.
Oh yeah, I was wondering. So I mean, around here. We got tons of water. Over there, it's like people are fighting over water rights. There's the whole thing with the cities fighting with the counties for it, etc. But I was wondering, are there any like plants that just do really well in your area, and some you think might do well in our area? I guess.
Yeah. So where there's a lot of rain, I always go with the gourds, like pumpkins, things like that. But it also depends on your humidity level. So your temperate zone, I think they call it, or
yeah, it's
hardiness zone.
Insanely humid in Alabama.
Yeah. So
1% throughout the year, it's bad.
Yeah, I went through there once. I think I remember that. Yeah, that Florida was a little like that too. And there's an organization in Florida, by the way, that's called Fleet Farming that does this with front yards. But they just have people donate the space. See, in LA, we have an agreement with the front yard owner that basically we're going to kick them back a percentage of the money that we earn together from our selling the food. So they're bought in on it and kind of incentivized on a 5-year lease with us. So yeah, there's definitely some farming things like that happening nearby, you guys. And so the specific things though, man, I think you should really look heavily at indigenous foods. Indigenous foods tend to have higher percentages of proteins and other fatty acids and things that are like good for your body. So a lot of those weren't preserved intentionally over time. They were lost either intentionally or just neglected when big ag got big. So nowadays there's online banks of seeds that you can have access to greater versions of indigenous foods, and it's healthier for your body. Like I planted a red corn that had 20% more protein than another corn, just because it was a different variety. So we can really take intentional care of ourselves.
Are there any things you'd love to plant over and over in your garden specifically, or?
Yeah, I've got this thing called callaloo. Callaloo is like a spinach from Nigeria and Jamaica. And yeah, I'd never heard of it. And actually, I think my homie next door brought it or just started growing. I don't know how it came up, but now it's everywhere. So I've got callaloo everywhere. I also have a really big mustard plant that's just like waiting to be eaten. Yeah, it's like this big. It's still waiting. Oh my gosh. And I had this big sunflower one year that just, oh my goodness, it had to have been like the size of my torso. They get tall and big, man. So
Yeah,
sunflowers
I had
are
a few of
really
those too. Those
lovely.
mammoth ones, they can get
Yeah, yeah, the mammoths.
oversized dinner plate, like 8-10 inch faces. By the time I got
Yeah.
out, I'd seen it finally grow and the thing had opened up, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna get like 10 pounds of sunflower seeds. But I mean, by the time I got outside, we'd had this other tree that was across the kind of our backyard fence in this larger park area, because we used to live for everybody in here, I used to live next to UAH, so it was like that park that's over by UAH. And there was probably 1,000 birds that lived in this tree. And I mean, they just descend on my sunflowers so fast the second they open up. I almost never got to eat the sunflower seeds because they pick those things clean.
Yeah.
Do you have something that you guys do about, I guess, like stopping the birds? Or do you just kind of like, it is what it is, let the birds have them, you know?
Yeah, there's a certain phase of growth that the plants reach when the birds don't want it as much. I'm trying to remember the exact term, but basically the first 2 leaves are the first form, and birds love those. And then once a third and any other past that come out, they have a different flavor and a different purpose. They're generally better like the vegetative state for photosynthesizing, so they taste way differently. It applies to everything like lettuces to kales and anything that's out there. So we happen to get the seedlings from the supplier in that second phase, so they're not as appealing to the birds right now. But I did notice one nick on them. So like one little, like some bird came and tried it, you know. And so I've got to see now if we have a solution to that. But related to, raccoons are really what we're concerned about. There's a whole family of raccoons nearby there, and they're very aggressive. Yeah. So, yeah, mostly though, birds hopefully will be okay. Yeah.
That's fair.
It's like Hitchcock.
Right. So Joy has a couple of questions here about, do the people that you make these agreements with, do they get to harvest from their yards personally, or
No, they don't. We manage it all, yeah, and we'll make sure that they get some. But that's actually kind of like the appeal too, that they don't have to do anything. But in the future, there is a business model that includes hiring them to do the job as well, since they live there and may be physically interested in it. So yeah, this is an employment opportunity for the homeowner, as well as a revenue opportunity, as a water saving opportunity. And something about being a community hero opportunity. I'm hoping to be able to install these, by the way, for cost to the homeowner. But this one was done with some contest money that we won on a public voting thing. But basically, I'd like for people to be able to pay for it if we agree to have it done with them from us and be part of our network, based on the beauty and perfect nature of their front yard, as well as their relationship with us to keep it good.
Basically an investment opportunity, right? Like if you're willing to spend $500 to let us terraform your front yard, you can basically make $20 a week in perpetuity forever, right? So it's like, Joy, you had a question. You can come off mute if you want to.
Hi, Joy.
Yeah. So hey, I have a million things to say, but you're talking about birds. So it is possible to manage birds very sensibly. What you want to do is attract bug-eating birds, and fill the space with as many of those kind of birds, so that there's no space for the other kind of birds. And so you do that by feed over the winter. I know in LA winter is like meh, but anyway, over the winter you put out a lot of suet and attract all of these bug eating birds. They'll come to your suet, and then in the spring when your garden comes in, you take the suet away, and they're used to coming to your yard, and they're going to continue to come to your yard and eat all your bugs. So
I'm writing that down.
And because you've already got a good bird population, you don't get as many of the the fruit eating birds.
And outcompete them.
Yeah. Or it's not even a competition thing. It's just they fill the space. The niche is full. Maybe it's competition for water or something like that. They're not really competing for food, but it's just like, it's kind of like feral cats. If you got some, more don't come. Sort of thing. It just there's like no territory.
Claim on territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great idea. Thank you. How do you spell suet?
SUET.
I would have never done that. Thanks. I'm glad I asked. Yeah, great. I'll try it out.
Also, I don't know where the heck you get this wolf urine.
I don't know where the guy does it either.
In tons of different places. So, like for you guys in Huntsville, what is the place? It's what is it called? It's.
I think she's saying how they harvest it.
There's a really fascinating YouTube video you can watch on that. They basically have
wolf urinals.
It's kind of like people.
So, it is pretty easy to get wolves to pee on things because they're territorial.
Sure.
So someone coming around and I don't, that's weird.
Yeah. If you're trying to buy some, you can get it at that CT Garvin.
Oh,
if you're in
okay.
Huntsville.
Yeah, I'm not. As I posted, I find that if you use your scraps from onions and garlic, that's really good deterrent for a lot of things. Just throw them in your garden. And also neem powder is great for deterring lots of things. So I'm like, why do you need wolf urine? Come on, that's a little bit exotic. Maybe we'll go down to Florida and get some bear urine. I don't know.
Alligator urine, man.
We don't really have any of that those kind of animals around here anymore. Unfortunately, obviously, but that's just a little bit weird.
Yes,
I've always seen blood meal used. I don't know if that's I don't even know what it's made of, but that's the only thing I've seen.
Yeah, I took time with the blood meal bag last time, trying to read and understand it. I still don't know. Maybe someone else does.
What is it that the raccoons are going after, like in your guys' gardens? Because, like, I know, for example, like at the house I had probably about 150 square feet in the backyard, and I planted everything. So I had beets and radishes, and I had a bunch of different lettuces, tomatoes, corns, cucumbers, all those things. And I actually had a family of raccoons that were living kind of in the drainage ditch in the arroyo behind my house. But like I never had a raccoon issue with them getting into the garden. So what is it that they're going after for you guys?
Compost, I think, pulls them into the garden.
They're just getting into the. Okay.
Well, I think the smell of the compost draws them to the space, and then they dig around. Because you're right, like they don't go for anything specifically, except maybe some carrots. They find the carrots.
Okay. So it's just them in and kind of digging everything up like kind of a dog would. It's like somebody's Labrador going and just like ruin the garden. Okay.
Yeah, it's happened 3 times this month. I don't know if it's a raccoon or not. I think it might be a possum. They do that too.
Yeah, because possums they eat like ticks and stuff, and so they tend to like they'll get in and dig for bugs and whatnot, so they can really the garden pretty badly. Just
wow,
the stuff that goes underneath the ground. If you have chickens and stuff, raccoons are a nightmare. I know that's been my dad's number one fight is keeping raccoons out of their chicken coop and things like that. Do you guys have any plans for that? Things like adding in some of those like small chicken coops, like those types of rabbits, whatever, like some sort of other, like I guess meat-based protein into the ecosystem. Is that an option you guys have?
Yeah. In fact, the owner of that house in the back, he has a space that we're planning to put ducks one day. Apparently, there's like 5 ways you can, benefit from having ducks. One is the eggs. 2 is the chicks, which are for sale sometimes. 3 is the ducks themselves when they're time to go. But also when they're alive, they can be used as a service to go take your ducks to somebody else's garden and have them clean off the bugs. So they just roam around and eat the bugs as a service. And then there's one more service I'm forgetting, something about the ducks.
Yeah, it's the soil, right? Like duck poop is it's like chicken poop.
That's it.
Compost is just top tier.
Yeah,
and feathers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Feathers too. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, but that's down the road. But yeah, there are no regulations against that in the city of LA right now. And yeah, so yeah, I'm keeping my eye on all the policies, man. I don't want to get blocked.
Right, you gotta, man.
So
and did you buy it? Oh, go ahead.
Because I know Courtney and Morgan out in their backyard, they have a whole number of ducks that they're utilizing for their basically urban farm situation. So I know Courtney had mentioned there's been a lot of fights and they've made some improvements on front yard gardens and some other things like that too in the Huntsville area. So from what I understand, because I looked into it for getting chicken coops of my own within the city limits, they have a limit on how far a coop can be from any building, essentially. So if you have a decent bit of land, I think you could get away with it, but depends on if you're in county or not. That makes sense.
It's people with big enough lots can have chickens, but those of us who have smaller yards could benefit from chickens also. So that really needs to change. And I also think, though, that Courtney and Morgan, have an agreement with their neighbors that it's okay.
I think they do, yeah. And so they're getting access to that large lot.
Well, that's what happened to me. My neighbors turned me in, so.
Oh, so much for doing anarchism in your neighborhood where you all crop share, that's.
The last time I was at city council, I stood up and said, well, and we need to do something about the chicken situation. And the city council, Bill Kling said, well, I thought it was okay to have chickens.
They don't
okay,
know.
if you're rich enough to have a great big yard, it's okay to have chickens. But, that's, well, what else is, that except more inequity?
Exactly. That's what that causes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad Hi Thurman looks like he's joined us. So excited to have you join us, my friend.
Hi.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm sorry I couldn't get out. I was on another program earlier, so
no worries.
Right.
I really want
nice to have you.
I really want to look over this. And Jeremiah, it's great to meet you, man.
You too. Hi, great to meet you.
You got some fantastic folks here that just, I don't know. I wouldn't trade them for anything. They're great.
That's not true. We have
actually it depends on how worthy, how much the other thing is worth, but
like $50, yeah. So one of the things that I remember is that really got me kind of actively watching what the work that you're doing, Jamiah. Was I remember the story you had posted. It was one of your Instagram videos. You'd done one of the short videos where it was the very first week you guys were all supposed to meet for the swap, and you overslept it.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Calling him out.
It was the very first one. Not only did I oversleep it, I don't drink very often, but the night before I drank a lot. I don't know where I was going. But I woke up an hour and a half late into the thing, and I get out there and the sun's bright in my face, and I know there are humans nearby, and so I just say oh my goodness, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming.
Just a bunch of people in your backyard shading vegetables without you.
Basically, yeah. Some people had come and gone already.
You fit right in with this group, man. I'm telling you.
Well, since I found out you two were high school buddies, I got to ask this question. Do y'all have any special nicknames we can use on the air?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we were in science club together, right?
Yeah, well, so we did, because you were also in chess club, right?
Yeah.
So but I don't think we did nicknames. Because I know it was me, you, Ralph, and Chris. And then I don't remember who else was in the group, but we were all the ones. And then Corey, for chess club and stuff,
right.
Armstrong's class.
Were you in band too, Don?
No, I was not a band guy.
Okay, I didn't think so. He was too cool. Yeah, man.
I was the computer programming classes instead. I was over in Miss
That's
Amy's
right.
class all day long. Yeah.
Oh, Miss Amy. Everybody, there was a class we took together called Adventures in Supercomputing.
That's right. That was the easiest day I'd ever gotten in my life.
It was fun.
I'm glad
But,
they have that class. I don't-
Yeah, that's the thing about it, that it's like we both went to high school in Clovis, New Mexico, just a little tiny farming town. And I guess you guys were out there because of the base, right, Jamiah?
Right.
So you guys lived out in were you in the 801 housing, or were you over on the other one next to where Chris was at?
801 briefly, and then we got a house in town, and
okay.
so we went to the schools from like fifth grade on.
Yeah. But I do remember like kind of the wildest part of that. I mean, Jamiah went all the way through high school. He had like a 4.5 GPA or something. I mean, he was always like, on top of just being smarter than the rest of us, he was always just infinitely harder working. Like, it was like me and Corey be asleep.
It seems like it's still continuing today. I just glanced at his Instagram and I'm like, man, I'm getting tired of this. Man.
That's it.
Thank you.
Hey, I think we should give them nicknames. How's that?
Thank you so much for remembering that. Yeah, man, I appreciate that, man. At first, hard work seems like a natural thing, but then when I realized that's something I can do anyway, then it's like always I'm gonna do that. But then I appreciate your kind words, Donna. Yeah, you're super bright, by the way. And I don't know, it's just a luck of opportunity, and people keep trusting me to do good with the power that I'm getting little by little, the power of people's trust and influence, to guard it, safeguard it the right ways. Like, I'm not interested in running for office anytime soon, but because I think Crop Swap LA can do more without a political infrastructure blocking it up.
Right.
But then down the road, I hope to be able to influence others, those on this call, when you go back to the city council, Joy, and, feel empowered knowing that, they may not know the rules, and it's not personal. It's like everything's got grandfathered in. And also this decade has new problems that need solving than the last decades have had. So it's okay to be bold in our knowledge and our approach. So I hope to just inspire people. Yeah.
I got a question kind of on the urban, I guess it's on all the stuff, but what do you think people misunderstand the most about like urban farming and farming in their yard?
Yeah, people think that people are going to steal their food and you need a fence or something like that. And actually, it's quite the opposite. And in the rare case when that would occur, I think that person is especially desperate and scared in the process. So I think it's unlikely to happen. But certain things that you can grow to not get them stolen, lettuces and herbs, of course, but things like pumpkins, if you have one giant pumpkin, somebody might steal your pumpkin, but if it's like tomatoes or things that produce in high volume, then you're much less likely to have anything taken.
It just kind of feels too. Yeah, I'm of the mindset that if somebody's going to be out stealing food out of your front yard garden, they need it more than you do, and so you just let them have it, right? Like, that's just that kind of. You and I have talked a couple of times on Instagram, some other things about that kind of anarchist, Taoist, that overlap that those ideologies hold. And
Yes.
If you want, you could take a few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about how that kind of ideology that you have blends into what you're doing with this project, as well as some of the other projects you're working on.
Absolutely. Thank you. And for those that are familiar, I'm a practitioner of the Tao. Taoism is a philosophy or an approach to life that kind of the more you discuss it, the less you know. It's one of those kind of you as the center and understanding how things move around you, and how you can allow and accept things in order to grow as you ought to. So I guess, it does do a lot with nature. It does, deal a lot with the elements and understanding how we can help each other. There's a degree of acceptance, kind of in the same example of the person that would steal the food, and a degree of acceptance of some loss, of some desperate situation in the process of reaching prosperity. And, feeling that is an automatic natural stage in this experience is by way of the Tao for me. To know that with the good comes the bad, with the high comes the low, and in as much as you are on a ladder, at the top or the bottom, it's best to be right in the middle where it's stable. So I've been really fortunate. There's a Taoist temple that I now listen in on virtually, periodically, but mostly just reading the book itself, reading those little chapters. They're kind of like parables written back 400 BC by Lao Tzu, and in modern day China, and those little bits of information are just so valuable. So I really love it, and would encourage anyone just for philosophy or intellectual exploration, check out the Tao.
And you speak a couple languages, right?
Yeah, Portuguese and Spanish.
Did you already know Spanish before you met your wife, or was that like is that why you learned? Just curious.
Yeah. I went to Spain not knowing very much Spanish at all. Much Spanish at all. I learned it along the way. And then after that, we went to Brazil and learned it along the way too. So like both of those languages, just my first bit of it was kind of like the street knowledge, like how to get food and how to get a haircut. And then others were about, then it got more sophisticated after that. So now our daughter, she speaks English, Spanish, Portuguese. My mom taught her sign language, and she speaks a little Mandarin from a class that she's been taking. So yeah, it's super cool.
That's good.
Yeah, I had a question about Brazil specifically because you spent a lot of time there. I was wondering because people have it's a huge country, but people have like such a idea of that it's crime ridden and like a scary place at this point in time. But I wonder if is there any like things about Brazil you think the U.S. could learn from specifically that you saw over there?
Yeah. There's a joy of life that the U.S. lacks, and I think it's because carnival isn't as big here as it is there. Like I was never there for carnival, but that tells me that I missed out on something that makes you guys better than us. I don't know, just kidding. Not better, but just more joyful. There's and they have a different history, of course. So, but there's a lot more nature there, of course, just based on where it is. They're not policy-wise as caring right now. There's a lot of deforestation happening, and truly what it is a desire to alter the water pathways. There's a river called the Xinyu River that goes into the Amazon. It's the largest tributary, and basically if they dam it and alter the directions of it, then it creates a new population of dependents to the state. Those people who depended upon water now depend upon the state for anything. So there's that happening, but I think it's got a long way to go. Like Brazil hasn't had any civil rights movements like we have, which gives it an opportunity to do it their way and do it longer lasting. But they are also going underneath like a little bit of a bad leadership situation right now, with their president. So yeah, I just think it was a good opportunity though to learn that language and guide a team and to come back to the States in 2010.
Very cool. All right. So I guess before we let you run, LA Crop Stop's not the only project that you work on, right? You got some other stuff that you do too. Do you want to take a few minutes and talk about some of those?
Yeah. The biggest thing is toiletries. Toiletries is the product that goes on your toilet and uses that water. So I'm hoping to roll out the first models of that probably in like 6 or 8 weeks, depending on when this funding comes through. And I'd love to see, it on everybody's toilet, like 2 or 3 of them, in hotels and like stores and places that have bathrooms again one day. So yeah, that's that. The children's book, that's important. The Captain Planted book series, I'd love to get that going this year. And just some policy initiatives around LA, making sure that like urban agriculture permitting can be extended, or getting a park idea pushed to city council. That's something I'm working on as well. It'd be a 50% park and 50% agriculture space that would hopefully, create jobs and food locally. So, yeah, and those are the extent of the things I'm working on now. I've taken on Crop Swap LA full time now. I used to have a part-time job, and now I'm committing to make my money this way and really like push myself and really just like make this work. Like all this publicity, all this opportunity, all this need. Like I better freaking make this work. So I think now's a good time, and I'm going full time as of the beginning of this month.
Great. You want to come out to Albuquerque and start all over again and
Totally.
crop swap Albuquerque?
Dude, I'm there in a heartbeat, man. We'll set it up in a week or less.
Do it. Let's do it. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Otherwise, we'll let Jamiah get back to planting some stuff. It looks like Joy's got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're doing this to be a role model. You said you didn't want to get into politics, but you're all into sort of just being an encouraging person. And you got to understand that a person that looks like you has got an access that a person that looks like me does not have.
Yeah.
So, and we have Alabama A&M University here. We have, I don't know, and I used to teach there, and I found it a very difficult place because most of the students up there are spend a lot of time saying what they want is what they think I've got, and I want to get back to the earth, but I can't. Those people won't follow my example, and the people that I can see here in our gallery also do not look like you. So how do we get people engaged in this movement around here?
Yes. So it has to be based on your own community, I think. And I think it's just easier for people to listen to people that have shared experiences. Like for instance, this front yard micro garden is in a Black community. And it wasn't even intentional for it was just an opportunity. And I realized that would make it easier for me to get the message across to the neighbors. If they looked out and saw, someone that looked like their nephew or someone that looked like their uncle to some young kids, very young.
Not so much anymore, buddy. We're getting up there. It's starting to you're not going to be as young.
Right. I would say, Joy, like whatever the group is that's drawn to you, use that energy. Like it's okay if it's not the other groups. Because I might be really ineffective in certain scenes that I'm not aware of right now yet, or I may have already been very ineffective in certain scenes where I thought I rocked it. But I can anticipate some cultural barriers that way. But when those opportunities come up, because it is a challenge and an opportunity, I encourage you to lean onto the food as the mitigating, unifying element of it all, in the fact that otherwise all those same groups of people still shop at the same supermarkets that are poisoning people and nutrient deficient foods. Like you're all literally in the same boat. If you're eating that garbage or this garbage, they're both garbage. And or you're overpaying for something that shouldn't be expensive at all, or really truly cost anything at all. I think I feel truly that food ought to be free, as well as internet, shelter, and water, and that it starts with showing that nature's abundance can actually make that happen. There's this misperception that and in the Black community, there's a misperception that working on the land is a bad thing, because there's some ties to slavery and some like very open scars to all that kind of work, and also recent advice to do the other work. There's been all this pressure from grandparents and parents to like get educations and city jobs, and that's it's a whole new set of skills to think backwards and say I'd like to farm instead. So I think showing though that without taking this opportunity, we're harming ourselves actively, and that the opportunity is so big and obvious that it is almost detrimental not to do it. Like it's like walking around town without insurance. It's like it'll cost you $10,000 a day to walk around without insurance, or $1,000 to get insured. Based on what could happen to you. So that's kind of what I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Do you have any other inventions you can talk about, or any that that never came through, or that you can spill the beans on?
Yeah, there's that one. Oh my goodness, you're like this, Donald. So this is really silly. I haven't gotten to it yet, but it's a big orb that you sit inside, right? It's like this thing you walk into and you sit inside the orb and it closes around you. And as you're sitting there, it does everything for you. That's the best way to describe it. It's a big screen. It's oval shaped inside, and you say, okay, take me to Paris and serve me the best spaghetti dish and play me violin. And, it'll zoom you to Paris. You'll see all the stuff, in the images. And then out of the wall pops a dish and dinner plate, and it just feeds you. There's someone playing music that's like audio, but live over there in Paris. Just that kind of experience. So anyway, I just think
Kind
someone
of like an AR?
Yeah, totally AR with a 4K water air blowing in your face and all this adventure.
I still don't know why they don't have a smell. Like you can smell something over the internet. Like who's going to invent that? Like the smell-o-vision, right?
That's you, buddy. This is your calling. You need to invent that, that smell vision.
That's a dope idea.
All right, man. Hey, we'll let you. You got lots of work to do. You're a busy guy, so we're gonna let you run.
Cool.
But we
very nice to talk
so
to everyone
for coming in and hanging out with
you
us.
Too.
What you're doing. And,
you too. I'll drop the link here. Yeah.
Yes. Drop links. And then also drop links to anything else. Like if you get something else you want to plug, drop all that stuff. And then for those of you who do want to follow along with all of his inventions and adventures and everything else, you can find him on Instagram. Do you want him to go through the crop swap or through your personal one?
Personal one's fine.
Yeah. So you can find him you're at Black Super Dad, right?
Yeah, that's it. Black Super Dad.
Yeah, so you can hunt him down, watch him and his adorable kids standing there 40-foot tall mustard plants. And then, man, again, we appreciate you, bud. And
I appreciate you guys too.
And follow up with some more stuff, especially as you guys get this built out a little bit more. I think this is a thing that grows really easy and it ramps up really well. And so the more success you can see even in a place like LA, which is so cramped, and I mean, because your backyard's what, maybe 400 or 500 square feet, if that.
Yeah, about 600. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's if you can grow enough food to live off of in 400 square feet in LA, then you can grow enough food to live off of anywhere, right? And so I think that's the big misconception, is to push past, is they're like, oh well, what's the point of having a garden in my yard if I can't, it's not I'm not going to grow enough food. And it's oh no, you absolutely can, right?
Yeah, a ton. Well, great to meet everybody. Thank you again for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this, Jamiah.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Jamiah.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Fireside Chats is a production of North Alabama School for Organizers. NASO seeks to empower communities through intersectional education and training. More information, including upcoming classes, at naso.network. Thank you for joining us for Fireside Chats.